Signs that you have been transformed. Signs that you have been transformed. Is what we're talking about today. I am a Transformers nerd, if I may. I love the movie. Now, there's a movie series out. They just came out with a third film called The Dark Moon Transformers. If you've never seen it, I would advocate to see this movie. The first one is the Transformers 1. And there you meet the kid, the main character, named Sam. Now, in the first one, I love the first one. I still think that's the best one. The first one, Sam wants a new car. That's what he wants. It starts off, bam, I want a new car. He worked all summer, got the money. His dad said, if you get straight A's, I'm going to give you the rest of it. So he talked the teacher into giving him an A, and you know what he did? After school, his dad took him to get a car. So they driving, and the dad pulls up into the Porsche lot. And he's like, oh my gosh, I'm about to get a Porsche. That's my car, I'm getting a Porsche. Dad laughing, he drives out of the Porsche lot and goes down the street to a used car lot. Now, Sam wanted something that's going to attract the ladies. He wanted something that's going to bring the attention to him. He wanted something that's going to blow their mind when he go back to school. But you know what his dad got him? If you got a cheap dad, you know what your dad got you. He got him a hoopty. And when Sam first got the hoopty, he was like, it was breaking down on him. He didn't understand what he had. Come to figure out what Sam had, he had a machine that could transform into a living robot. It changed Sam's mind and his world. But he never knew that when he first went to get the car. And just like Sam, the disciples treated Jesus the same way. They didn't know they had the Messiah before them. They thought he was what? Elijah, John the Baptist. Some say you Jeremiah. Some say you just a prophet. That's what they said. And then Peter, cousin Peter, says, I know who you are. You are the Messiah. You are the Messiah. You are the Christ. You are the one. But how did Peter get to that point? Because Peter always did not think like that. Peter himself was transforming his thoughts. In his mind, his life transformed once he started hanging out with Jesus for this year and a half. Because when Peter first got chosen, you know what Peter was doing? Like some of us doing? 9 to 5 in it. On his boat, throw his net, probably 6 a.m. I heard that's a good time to fish. Pull him up about 11, do it again tomorrow. Then Jesus came and saw Peter and said, Peter, oh there, come on, follow me. He dropped it. I can imagine being a fisherman. I would quit that job quick too. He quit the job and started following Jesus. And then his whole life got transformed. Transformed. So transformed that he's following this guy for a year and a half, didn't have a job, didn't have anything, but he's following Christ. Before this, and I kind of helped you guys see how Peter got to this conclusion. They just seen 5,000 get fed. They just seen 4,000 get fed. They just seen him do all these miracles. And the other disciples, clueless, oh, you're just a regular person. Peter said, only God can do some of the stuff you've been doing. So Peter hung out with Jesus for a year and a half. And it's interesting because none of the disciples or Jesus had a job. But nowhere in the Bible does it say they went lacking. I was thinking about that because Jesus comes back. He says something interesting about, he says, you know, the birds have their necks, the fox have the hole, but the man of God has no place to lay his head. But they didn't either. And none of them quit. They followed this man for 3 years. So if truth be told, all the disciples were transformed. And I don't want to be too long. I'm not a Baptist preacher. I can't preach all day. So I'm going to go ahead and start it off. Point number 1 that I see in the text is identification of Jesus is a sign that you have been transformed. And we see that in verse 15 and 16. Let's read it. It says, but what about you? He asked, who do you say I am? Simon Peter says, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. Peter identified who Christ was. He knew. He had faith enough to say it. Most of us, we can't identify Christ until we're scared to be a Christian. We're scared to go to our job and say, you know, I'm a Christian. I won't steal the copy machine paper. Y'all guilty of that. We scared to identify with the things of Christ, but Peter wasn't. Peter said, you are the Christ. When you identify the things of Christ, you're saying a couple of things. When you identify who Christ is, you start to understand what? His will. So you identify what God wants you to do. You start to identify your purpose with God because you understand if you are the Christ, you live in me, you dwell in me, that means you have a purpose for my life. So you identify. Isn't it funny that we know people who can identify everything but God? You see them shoes she got on Saturday night? Them ain't real Gucci. Mm-mm. You see that purse she got on? That's not real. You see that hair? They can identify anything, everything, but God's stuff. You see somebody hurting and crying, you can't identify what word they need to help them out, though. You can't identify the things of God. You can't identify when somebody at your job is cussing out, is running crazy around the office. You can't say, hold on, what is your problem? You can't identify the things of God. Isn't it funny, young people? We can identify Lil Wayne, how to love. Had a lot of cricks, started to steal your heart. Never had luck, something, how to love. But we can't identify, beloved, let us love one another, from love is God. And everyone that loveth is born of God and knoweth God. He that loveth not, knoweth not God, because God is love. I don't need Lil Wayne to tell me what love is. I know who love is. I met love when I was 4 years old, listening to this man preach. I met love. We can identify everything but the things of God. And we wonder why kids are just running crazy in DeKalb County. Because we can, like Pastor said, we can identify what's wrong with them. They on drugs, they murdering people, they doing this, they doing that. But we don't want to identify, okay, it's time for us to go out there, parents, and do some stuff. Yes, sir. It's time for us to take a stand and say, I want my child back. I'm going to identify something for y'all. I watched the show for First 48. And then I heard it was coming to Atlanta. And I'm a nerd. Like I said, I got excited. Like, oh, my God, First 48 coming to Atlanta. We about to be on TV. Oh, my God. Mind you, it's a show about crime. I guess I'm thinking they're going to arrest me and have me in an interrogation room. I'm going to be on TV like, yeah, man. That's just my fantasy or something, I know. And then when the first episode, I'm like, okay, I'm excited. I'm thinking it's going to be someone 25 or above, kind of gang-related activity. A 13-year-old boy shot, killed. I was like, Jesus, come on. That's how you're going to start Atlanta off? Not only was it wasn't Atlanta. It was DeKalb County. McAfee. That's right around the corner from my house. I was like, that's too close to home, too. But then I identified something. Because it wasn't just like a random boy my age or a 15, 16-year-old that shot a boy. Let me tell you, let me lay it out for you guys so y'all can see it real quick, so y'all can identify the problems in DeKalb County with me. The mom and the 17-year-old